As summer approaches and everyone is feeling the fatigue of staying at home, and the itch to get back together is quickly growing, I wanted to talk today about how we return to the art of the stroll, the fun of shopping, and simply dining out again on Main Street. As a real estate development company that creates vibrant, walkable environments in university towns, our passion lies in perfecting the art of the stroll for our downtown sidewalks. As we all are well aware, our world was unexpectedly altered in ways we never could have imagined. The days of crowded main streets filled with happy shoppers, diners, along with fun town square events and concerts has definitely been put on hold and on pause. As town redevelopers, we have heard the same question again and again from lots of legislators and business leaders up and down the East Coast. What are you hearing, Tim, from other cities? Can you share how they plan to return to an active Main Street? So we thought this was a great topic worth exploring and have invited two innovative leaders who are in action planning on just that. One is a leading food hall entrepreneur, Mike Morris, responsible for food halls up and down the East Coast with hundreds of vendors and thousands of visitors. And the other is Ray Gibbs, the executive director of Forward High Point, a leading downtown renaissance organization who promotes economic development and creates downtown events. Both are staring down this standstill square in the eyes and actively working on taking steps to returning the public downtown. So Mike, you represent a product that is at the epicenter of what I call food excitement. It's literally an economic development tool more than any other product I know for downtown redevelopment. Sure. A great, passionate gathering spot. Question to you, as a leader in that development piece, tell me a little bit about CANAdev, where you're working, the vendors, and if you could share that with us, that'd be great.
Sure, happy to. So CANAdev Development is pretty much one of the leaders in the food hall industry today, particularly on a nationwide basis. We're one of the very few operators that operates multiple markets in multiple cities. Today we've developed 7 food halls in public markets that are open and operating. We have an additional 14 under various phases of development or construction. We were scheduled to open 5 more this year. We were hopefully opening our next market in Boston, which was scheduled to open in March. Happy to explain kind of where we are soon with that project. We have a project also in Washington, D.C. Called Western Market, right on the edge of George Washington's campus, that is scheduled to open hopefully early this fall. So we'll see. You know, we're constantly tracking that. Within the portfolio of the 7 markets that are open and operating, there are 179 vendors operating at some phase today, although candidly that means they're not all open today. We've been very flexible during this time, allowing vendors to do what they think is best and right for them, and supporting them in every way we can to hopefully help them be successful not only now, but through this entire process. Specifically, that's translated to about 30% of our vendors open and operating at this moment. That number has ebbed and flowed over the last couple of months, but we're seeing relatively good success with the vendors that are open. But that's been a challenge, to say the least.
Imagine it is. So the question is, where are we when we were ordered to stay indoors, a lot of us? That really hurt the dining business, clearly, and food halls. But where do you see this going to? We have to get to gently opening up and then eventually opening up full time, hopefully. So how do you see us moving from point A to point B? What are some of the steps you think that would be appropriate?
So, you know, the challenge, right, is it's an evolutionary process, and it's going to continue to develop over a period of time. Every city that we're in, every municipality that we're working with has their own kind of approach based upon philosophy, but also just based upon what's going on in that particular market. And our challenge is to be responsive to that and also be ready and prepared for when things change to evolve with it. I think you're going to see a series of evolutions that start with what's happening right now, outdoor dining being allowed in our markets and food halls. And in addition to that, we're now starting to see that in the next wave, customers will be able to go inside to our markets to order their food, although probably won't be allowed to dine in yet. From there, I think there'll be various phases, 25% occupancy, 50% occupancy, 75% occupancy. You'll see recommendations such as keeping seating, at least 6 feet apart from the back of chair to back of chair in a seated position. I likely think that will extend where all of a sudden you see 4 feet, 2 feet, and then no particular recommendation either. We're also following certain guidelines as far as pattern of flow. So we are requiring patrons and guests of our markets to enter certain doors and exit other doors in hopes that that helps manage the flow through our markets. I mean, the challenge for our food halls and public markets is that we rely on significant numbers of people to come into the markets for our vendors to be successful. In our average market, we see somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 people a day. In our top markets, and obviously that's tied to larger density, such as Philadelphia, where we see somewhere between 4,500 and 4,700 people a day. The benefit, though, of a public market or food hall is the density, in that in a fast casual restaurant environment, you have very, very tight seating areas where traditionally an average seat is allotted about 15 to 20 square feet in the overall restaurant space. Whereas in a food hall, there's so much more open and larger space, we can accommodate a much less dense seating environment. So right now we're tracking at about 80 to 90 square feet per seat in our food hall. I think the challenge is getting the consumer comfortable with that. That yes, these are lots of people, but you have relatively strong distance already created in the environment. Not everybody's going to the same vendor. There's lots of different seating that it can accommodate you, and that seating will change. You know, right now we've actually removed all common seating out of the market, so all communal seating, large tables, in lieu of having 2 tops, 4 tops, and up to 6. And that will continue, I think, for quite some time. And realistically, I think it's a 6 to 9 month process from today to get back to where we once were. I think the silver lining, frankly, is that in a 12-month to 18-month process, we should hopefully leapfrog where we are today. And you know, the math's pretty simple. There's not a lot of vendors that aren't susceptible to what's happening right now. The best vendors will make it through this process. And with that, though, unfortunately, that means that certain vendors will close. I think realistically, we're going to see somewhere between 10 and 20% of our vendors not reopen. In addition to that, I think you're going to see another 10 to 20% of our vendors open, but not make it through the end of the year. And that translates to a 20 to 40% vacancy. The food hall, though, is as well set up to rebound out of this process as anything in the hospitality industry. The barrier to entry is very low. The overall economics are completely tied to the success of the vendor and their sales. And it's kind of already built in a lot of different categories. It's really a turnkey solution for a starting business. Right now, we have almost 68% of our businesses are minority and women-owned businesses, and really, you know, attracting the kind of clientele that's looking for that unique kind of destination food product. I think that, you know, that's only going to grow out of this, and it's kind of analogous, frankly, to what happened in 2008. You know, in 2008, if you were following the food truck industry, you know, you had a lot of financial people who had a passion, who got furloughed or laid off, and were, you know, sitting around watching television or pursuing their passion in cooking or hospitality in general, and said, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. And you saw a huge growth in the food truck industry back then. And frankly, the food hall industry really didn't exist yet, particularly in its kind of maturity that it is today. The food hall offers that same operator the opportunity to lower barrier to entry from an operational cost, lower barrier to entry of creating your market, right? Because in a food truck, you've got to find your market every day, and you've got to reinvent your customer profile. You don't need that in the food hall industry. And you've got a lot of people, I think, are looking to potentially fulfill their passion, follow their dream, and quite frankly, be their own boss and not have their destiny held in somebody else's hands, given what we've just gone through. We've already seen that, frankly. I mean, we've had, in Philadelphia, we've had 2 leases signed in the last 4 weeks. In Washington, D.C., we've had 6 leases signed in the last 6 weeks. I think that speaks volumes to kind of how people are reacting to the food hall industry. And from there, you know, if you look at the numbers, we're not unique to the fact that retail and restaurants are going to close out of this effort. I think that's a market reset, though. The reality is the United States today has 4 times the density of retail per capita in the United States to Europe, as an example. We're simply overseated. And I think what this will hopefully do will allow the good operators to make it through this process with less competition. In addition to that, you've got a huge unemployment category right now. And that's unfortunate. You know, it's a shame to see that many people not working today. Fortunately, because of the CARES Act and other programs, I think there are an opportunity to kind of get through this process. And I think when our vendors do reopen, the labor pool is going to be stronger. There's a lot of really qualified, managers and chefs and cooks that are out there right now that are unemployed, having nothing to do with their skill set, their ability, their strengths, right? So you have a lack of competition. You have an increased, positive labor pool. In a year from today, most of the vendors in the hospitality industry should be doing better because of that, frankly. It's kind of simple math at the end of the day. I think it's going to be a challenge to educating the consumer and making them feel comfortable, making them feel safe, and giving them an opportunity to have space to do that it's going to take time.
Let me take in this scenario. So we've been 4 months kind of sheltered inside and sheltered in place. Starting to loosen up now in many states. Some are still tightened up in certain counties and locations. The question is, do you see a day where it's 100% back to where we were? Or is it, there's a market reset, was a great phrase you used. What does the market reset look like? And will we see a day of back to 100% in your opinion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're going to see that in 12 to 18 months. By human nature, we're social creatures. We're dying for interaction. We're dying for connection with our brethren, our friends, our acquaintances, our coworkers. We're looking for that. That's just something ingrained in our DNA. And then you combine that with the fact that there's been so little to do up to that point, and the fact that we have short-term memories. And time and time again, if you look at what's happened with MERS and SARS and other pandemics and other health crises, we realize that we have to live, and we innately want to socialize. We innately want to do things with other people. And we strongly believe that the food hall industry and the hospitality industry in general will rebound and rebound significantly. And the groups that make it through this will end up doing better and stronger and more populated. And I think that we're going to be hopefully in the forefront of helping set that tone. And a lot of that is making sure that today our customers feel safe, making sure that we're taking all the standard precautions to build that support and that comfort within our customer and guest, so that when we continue to open these businesses, everything works. And I think the unique thing too is we're seeing the reaction already, and it's kind of coming in 3 different directions. There's certainly a demographic in the United States that is kind of a wait and see, and isn't quite sure where this is going to end up and isn't comfortable necessarily with it. On the far other side of that spectrum is the millennial demographic. And largely they're a very, very low risk for the current situation that we're dealing with. They're largely pent up in very small living quarters and residential situations. They're social creatures by nature, and they're dying to do something. And we've already seen it in the markets where outdoor seating has opened up. We have seen a tremendous rebound already to that, with great support and great social media information about how people have interacted with that and the positive experiences that they've been seeing so far. And we hope that that continues and grows. There will probably be a second wave to what's going on. I think that reaction will be very localized to where we are. And I think, fortunately for us, we are so geographically diverse. It will challenge certain markets to deal with it. The majority of our markets will continue to grow and develop. And our goal is to continue to support all of them individually to help them get through this process and allow them to rebound. And we've got a great platform to allow our vendors to do that and provide them support on an ongoing basis, like we always have done, to be successful through this.
Excellent. Thanks for the great insights. We certainly appreciate your thoughts.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.